или вы будете просто слушать? Хорошо. Ну что, друзья, мы начинаем. Я хочу вас поздравить с тем, что у нас сегодня стартует необычное событие. У нас сегодня будет мастер-класс. У нас очень важные, уважаемые гости. И я счастлива, что все мы сегодня будем, скажем так, участниками этого мастер-класса, который у нас будет такой очень короткий, но яркий. После чего мы увидим 4 стартапа, 4 презентации, очень коротких. Ребята, я надеюсь, вы готовы. Вот, и нас сегодня порадуете и удивите. Итак, сегодня у нас в гостях Михаил Чичкевич, управляющий партнер компании Sequoia Capital. Аплодисменты. И Майкл Гогена, управляющий партнер компании Sequoia Capital. Дабы не терять время, я передаю сразу слово Михаилу. Михаил, буквально несколько слов. То есть у нас тема мастер-класса звучит так. Говорите, крутой стартап, докажите. То есть, по сути дела, у нас сегодня встреча с 2 венчурами, и мы услышим непосредственно из их уст, что значит крутой стартап, в их понимании.
Здравствуйте, крутые стартапы. Очень приятно быть здесь, как я чувствую энергетику сразу, просто такую же, как в Силиконовой долине, даже намного мощнее, потому что много несбывшихся надежд, которые надо, конечно же, превратить в миллиарды долларов. Когда такие простенькие ребята в джинсах, значит, девчонки покупают где-нибудь на бабке дома по полмиллиарда долларов, это, в принципе, радует. Кстати, как минимум в одной компании, которую мы инвестировали в Штатах, в Калифорнии, из нашего клинтечного фонда, у нас как раз CEO компании, родом из Харькова, служил в этом самом в Афганистане, уехал, стал химиком, значит, что-то по химии здесь окончил, уехал в Штаты, и сейчас вот его аукцион, так, газохимическая компания, я думаю, так, миллионов на 100, наверное, долларов не потянет. Да? Хороший такой пример. Вот. Что я хочу сказать про крутые стартапы и так далее. Вот пару слов скажу про то, что мы делаем. Отсюда будет понятно, как мы стартовали в 2010 году, то есть нам практически 2 года, да, на рынке. И стартовали с инвестиций одного из российских больших бизнесменов, Михаила Абызова, который увидел, какого качества бизнес есть и в IT-интернет-сегменте, и в индустриальных технологиях, в Штатах, в первую очередь, у крупнейших фирм, Sequoia, до нашей первой сделки с Sequoia, компании по солнечной энергетике, мы вместе инвестировали туда деньги. И увидев, насколько это интересный бизнес, человек талантливый, он проинвестировал первые 200 миллионов долларов в США в создание нашего первого проекта фонда нашей линейки. То есть 2 года назад нас не существовало. Ну, тоже, в принципе, своего стартап. На сегодняшний день у нас там уже 2-я генерация фондов. У нас есть и посевной фонд «Бриколаж» по IT-интернет на базе площадки Digital October, потому что многие из вас некоторые знают, цифровой октябрь в Москве тоже. Одна из инициатив, и наш офис прямо в прогресс-баре в Digital October, очень хорошо расположен, удобно, всегда попить кофе можно. Вот, значит, у нас есть фонд Pride Digital, первое закрытие его было в начале этого года, там уже, по-моему, 7 или 8 сделок айтишных, интернетовских. Есть и российские компании, есть компании европейские, израильские, которые мы инвестируем. Мы инвестируем, как правило, в данном случае компании уже с выручкой, с понятной космосом. Ну, доктор на работе, фотошкола, там что-то еще из таких российских примеров, которые мы инвестируем, не есть. Значит, сейчас мы этот фонд расширяем до 150 миллионов долларов. С удовольствием будем смотреть на украинские компании тоже. Вот. И у нас наша клинтечная линейка фондов расширяется до $1 миллиарда. То есть получается, вдруг мы неожиданно совершенно, приложив к этому определенную усилие и страсть, там, оказываемся одним из крупнейших там, фондов по клинтеку в Европе и имеем великолепный портфель и быстро расширяемся здесь. То есть, в принципе, когда мы начинали, никто не верил. Много было людей, которые говорили, у нас ничего не получится. Почему? Значит, в этом смысле, почему у нас, я считаю, получилось, потому что мы нашли правильную ключевую идею. Ключевая идея, конечно, дорогого стоит. Ключевая идея у нас была, что мы пошли формировать портфель через инвестиции вместе с теми фондами, которые уже по 40 лет имеют премиальную доходность, имеют самый лучший портфель. Дальше мы добавляли стоимость этим компаниям. Это оказалось очень привлекательной идеей для наших инвесторов. Больше никто не мог предложить такого класса активов. У нас получилось очень быстро все это дело вырастить. Вот. Это пара слов про нас. Пара слов про крутые стартапы. Ну, очевидно, что самое главное, что мы сейчас вот видим, если брать стартапы, которые идут из интернета, интернет-софтвера и айтишные, то, конечно, чем лучше вы будете понимать вашу модель по костам и по марже, то есть если вы все-таки будете ориентироваться, четко понимать, как вы будете зарабатывать деньги, монетизировать, и это, конечно, ну, я не знаю, там 80% вашего успеха. Если вот эта модель у вас будет подтверждена, она будет работать, то привлечь деньги от любого уровня качества инвестора вам будет достаточно легко. Вот. Это очень редко, к сожалению, встречается. Все говорят о том, что мы сейчас разовьем миллионы пользователей, потом включим в счетчик, из них останется столько-то процентов, а Бог его знает, сколько останется. А может, ни одного не останется. Таких примеров больше, чем достаточно. Поэтому я всегда в первую очередь тестирую вот эту ситуацию. Вот. Второе, что надо достаточно дерзко себя вести, чтобы привлечь внимание. Вот, то есть не показывайте слишком сильной заинтересованности в тех инвесторах, с которыми вы разговариваете, да, будьте максимально уверены в себе. И если вы копируете 18 раз одну и ту же идею, которую уже кто-то где-то скопировал, конечно, у вас шансов намного меньше. Если вам удалось найти что-то свежее, что работает, и вы сможете впечатлить инвестора, то это намного интереснее. Я могу сказать, что ситуации при этом партнерстве бывают очень разные. Вспоминаю историю, которую Даг Леонов, второй управляющий партнер в Sequoia, наш тоже близкий партнер и товарищ, рассказал про Dropbox. Знаете, откуда появился, как возник Dropbox? Очень интересно. Он возник в Дага Леона. I'm telling the story of Dropbox from Даг Леона. Что в случае, его величество случай. Значит, Дага Леона, поскольку там Стэнфорд, Менло Парк, Пало-Альто, один маленький городок, университет, значит, Даг общался с тем самым, который plug-and-play хозяин. В общем, Саидом Амиди, да, Саидом Амиди. Значит, а Саид же, у него бизнес plug-and-play, это такой бизнес уже, последний его бизнес. В принципе, он недвижимостью владеет и коврами торгует, да. У него на университете есть магазин ковров иранских. Ну и вот он Дага попросил, как товарища, говорит: так, слушай, тут у меня есть иранские студенты, там, ты можешь там раз в месяц, раз в пару месяцев прийти и там как-то рассказать про то, как бизнес делать, все такое, вот, моим иранским студентам. Дагу было неудобно отказаться, он согласился, и вся Sequoia над ним смеялась, значит, регулярно, когда он ходил туда иранским студентам рассказывать про венчурный бизнес. На какой-то из таких встреч ему подошел один из этих студентов, сказал, что, ребята, слушайте, есть очень простая идея, вот такая, давайте сделаем. Дагу понравилось, в результате через уже полгода над ним Sequoia перестала смеяться. Появился Dropbox. Да, появился Dropbox, элементарно. Вот, поэтому новые свежести, новизна идеи, с нашей точки зрения, лучше. Подтвержденная кэш-модель должна быть. Пить вас будут инвесторы именно по ней. Вот. Что еще? Локальность рынка, не локальность рынка. Значит, все идеи, которые направлены на локальный рынок, менее всегда привлекательны, нежели если вам удастся что-то найти, что какой-то потенциал имеет на международном. Причем никогда не думайте, что там, как я могу выйти на этот международный рынок. Никакой проблемы, если ваша идея applicable, то, что называется, на fit. Никакой проблемы нет в том, чтобы выйти на нормальный на американский тогда и рынок. Для этого есть такой инструмент, как синдикат инвесторов. То есть вы, как стартаперы, выбираете себе инвесторов, исходя из того, что кроме денег вам от них нужно. Правило, вам нужно вход на рынок, вам нужна экспертиза по выстраиванию уже большого бизнеса из маленького стартапа. В этом и ценность как раз таких партнеров инвесторов Sequoia. брать и другие, в том, что выход на рынок, пожалуйста, он у вас будет. Американский рынок — это их отечественный рынок, так же, как наш с вами украинский, российский и даже белорусский. Вот, поэтому вот этого ступора точно не должно быть. Фантазируйте совершенно спокойно, если найдете идею, которая applicable, супер. И тогда, в принципе, когда вот мы приходим, мы смотрим, если есть компания, допустим, уже с выручкой, которую можно... Выручка что такое? Это подтверждение этой самой модели по кэшу, который может зарабатывать эта компания. Да? Это значит, что такой-то типаж, он работает в таких-то костах. 15-100 долларов стоит аквизиция клиента, 10 стоит курс в фотошколе, а 150 за него платят вот такого рода 18 типов потребителей. Вот так оно растет. Дальше как раз очень полезно, инвестор сразу реагирует. Он понимает, что на американский-то рынок он вас выведет. Вам не нужно подтвердить, что это уже зарабатывает, что это работает на таком-то типаже. Поэтому глобальные компании или с потенциалом на глобальный рынок модели, ну, с моей точки зрения, там, привлекательнее, очевидно, чем это самое. Вот что еще? Что еще? Что еще? Любите инвесторов, да, вот что еще. То есть не бойтесь, но и любите одновременно. Потому что каждый из нас, вы знаете одно что-то свое, доносите это до нас, мы знаем что-то свое. То есть, на каком-то этапе всегда будет у вас этот самый челлендж, когда нужно переходить на профессионального SEO. То есть это и в компаниях клиентечных, которыми мы там, в большей степени занимаемся, в компаниях айтишных, фаундер живет в компании в качестве первого лица до какого-то момента. Дальше его страсти должно оставаться в компании не меньше, должен появляться SEO и профессиональная команда менеджмента, которая будет из этого строить функционирующую большую компанию. Ну, это как бы, переход он тоже, в принципе, понятен. Инвестор, в том числе качественный, всегда помогает найти такого рода команду и сделать так, чтобы и ваша страсть там была на месте, и менеджмент был на месте. Почему мы так любим инвестировать в компании там, вместе, которые инвестируют Sequoia, например, другие великие фирмы, потому что вот ты смотришь на качество менеджмента, ты понимаешь, что SEO этой компании это SEO, который уже 2 или 3 компании до того успешно вырастил вместе с Sequoia, продал за несколько сотен миллионов долларов или за пару миллиардов, и у него есть этот опыт, он уже, ну, как бы это все прожил несколько раз. То есть вот такого калибра люди, у них есть там 800 компаний, да, которые они выросли. Вот, наверное, примерно все. Дальше, думаю, Майк, will you say something?
I have a talk, yeah.
Спасибо.
All right, I'm hoping, do I need this? I'm hoping everybody speaks English, otherwise it's going to be really boring. But thank you actually for letting me come talk to you folks, because this is the favorite thing for a venture capitalist to do. Actually, is to talk to people who start companies. It's exciting. It's what keeps the job exciting. It's fun interacting with bright, energetic, starry-eyed people and then helping them achieve fame and glory and riches. I didn't know I was going to give a talk. I happen to have a slide deck that I've given fairly recently. Google invited me over one evening to speak to about 300 entrepreneurs that they invited, not just Google people. And the purpose of that talk was to try to give people hints on, what are the key ingredients of really great startups and what should we be thinking about if we're starting a company. So I thought that might be appropriate for you, if any of you are thinking of starting a company. So I'll go into that. First, just a quick background on me. I don't understand Russian, so I don't know what Michael was saying. But I've been a managing partner at Sequoia for 16 years. And been involved in the beginning, because I tend to be a pretty early stage guy, oftentimes seed all the way up, and I've been involved in over 60 companies. Lots have gone public and had nice outcomes, some haven't. The ones that haven't are probably the ones that taught me the most. But the other thing that might be relevant to you is prior to becoming a venture capitalist, I had a really technical background. So Cornell and Stanford, electrical engineering, sort of firmware software. I assume a lot of folks in the audience have technical backgrounds. I guess that says you can go and start companies, be successful, and be a venture capitalist if you want. and get to do it all day long in multiple instances. So I'll go through this talk and then take questions. I'll try to whip through it, but it's really supposed to be focused on, again, things that I would think you want to keep in mind if you want to have a really successful company. So let's start small. So I'm going to emphasize through the talk the things that should be big in your startup and the things that should be lean and small. So I'll do a quick snapshot and then talk about what we look for in a startup. So again, I don't know what Mike told you already. Apologize for repetition, but Sequoia is 40 years old. One of the oldest, most established venture capital firms. I guess aside from, it's nothing to brag about how long you've been around if you haven't performed, but we've performed really well. Tend to be the number one or maybe number two in performance for every vintage for 40 years, which is pretty tough to pull off. Very proud to say Sequoia, in all its history, has never had a single fund, and we've had many, many, many funds that lost money. Our worst in our history was around 2 times the money, so for investors that mattered a lot. For you guys, it probably doesn't matter. But we're proud of our track record. We used to just be focused in Silicon Valley, and then in around 2005, we started to go to different geographies. So one of my reasons for being here is to start to look around here and see what's happening in Ukraine and Russia and so on, and see when and if it gets interesting enough for us to make direct investments. So on the small topic, nearly every giant company you can think of in technology, you have to remind yourself, started really, really small. Started with 1 or 2, maybe 3 founders in incredibly humble circumstances, oftentimes on a folding cafeteria table with breadboards spread on it and wires and soldering guns and that sort of thing. Or in somebody's garage, literally. Steve and Steve, the 2 folks who started Apple Computers, it was literally in a garage. That's when Don Valentine, the founder of Sequoia, gave him their first $1 million to start the company. Trip Hawkins was the founder of Electronic Arts. It really started the whole electronic gaming industry, software gaming industry. Sandy and Len were the founders of Cisco Systems. And then here's some more modern examples, and I'll get even more modern, but the founders of Yahoo. The way we discovered Yahoo actually was we weren't involved in Netscape, and this is just prior to me joining Sequoia in 96, this was probably 94 or so. We weren't involved in Netscape, and we saw its success or started hearing about it, and the partners that were there at Sequoia said, oh my God, what are we missing? What do we do to get ahead of this trend? Let's go talk to Stanford. And they went over to Stanford University, which is next door to us, and asked the deans and professors, what's interesting and happening over here? And they said, well, rattled off a few topics, and they said, well, you might want to go talk to these 2 guys in the trailer over there, these PhD students, because they keep sort of bringing down all our servers. They must be up to something interesting. And that was Yahoo, so we invested in Yahoo. Larry and Sergey with Google, I was there for that one. The 2 older partners, when Larry and Sergey pitched, turned to me and said, you're the technical guy, does this make any sense? I said, it makes sense, so we invested in Google. That turned out well. And then YouTube, and by the time they finally moved out, it was shortly thereafter that they were acquired for a big price. And then these companies you might have heard about, these are the newest vintage, Airbnb, doing very well, LinkedIn, I guess very public, and Dropbox. In every case, people who don't understand how companies begin are surprised at how humble the beginnings are. And they become household names. The companies that Sequoia's been the original investor in are worth now, I think it's closer to $600 billion. And those are usually from relatively small investments, oftentimes single-digit $1 million investments add up to that kind of market cap. And then, of course, we own a percentage of those companies. So here's the things we invest in, just historically. Energy and clean tech. I've been heading up that effort since 2007. Globally, we've been fairly cautious. I'll tell you why. You'll understand why when I go through the other things we look for. And you'll realize that a lot of the criteria we look for eliminate a lot of the clean tech categories. For example, we don't invest in things that require lots and lots and lots of money. And a lot of clean tech companies do. Financial services, we were the original investor in folks like PayPal. So a lot of online financial services companies are really interesting, and I think will be new ones. Many of you are thinking of starting one. Internet, obviously, mobile, and then general technology. I've put down infrastructure. That's an area that I'm kind of heading up for the firm right now, because it's consistent with my background. For any of you who are down in the guts of software, enterprise software, there's a lot of really interesting things happening finally. for the first time in about 5 years, because it had gotten fairly boring. Big companies, just EMC and storage and Cisco and networking and so on. Things were static, and now they're not static anymore. Virtualization, to speak techie talk for a second, VMware with the virtualization on the compute side is starting to ripple down into the rest of the infrastructure. So it's creating a lot of opportunities, cloud, private cloud, all these things. So these are some of the companies that, from yesterday, these are some of the newer vintage that you might have heard about or will hear about. This is the punchline of the whole talk. This is actually the secret sauce. So if you just remember one slide or want to write down a few things, this is it. If you follow this formula, you'll have a fabulously successful company. Seriously, these are the things we kind of look at. If one of you gave a presentation to us and we were trying to figure out if it was something we wanted to invest in or not, these are the things we look at. So clarity of purpose means, can you actually describe what you do? In some cases, there's nothing worse than someone who probably has a great idea buried in there somewhere. But even in their own mind, they can't clearly articulate what you're doing, why you're doing it, whose problem does it solve, and why. Why is it simple? You should be able to do all that in a sentence or two, as far as the high level that they call the elevator pitch. And if you can't, there might be something wrong with your idea. Because if it's that hard for you to explain it, it's going to be that hard for somebody to get interested, want to buy your product or invest in you, and so on. Spectacular market. Sequoia's been sort of famous for focusing very heavily on the market. People are equally important, but you could have a great team, fabulous team, you could have a great product, super cool technology, and if you guessed wrong and you basically build something that nobody wants, that choice of market, it's very hard to be successful. We always think that that's the one thing that you can't ever adjust or change. The market's going to be what it is. People without customers are going to want what they want and follow the trends they follow. You can't affect that much, so you have to make sure you're picking an interesting space. I mentioned pain already. It's really, really critical that you think in those terms. Think about whatever it is you're doing, and you think it's really interesting, maybe because you got enamored with how cool the algorithm is or something. But step back for a second and say, wait a minute, why does this matter? And I got to make sure does this really matter to somebody? Does somebody, a customer, someone who pay you money, have a pain? Are they really hurting for something? And I'm going to come along with the beautiful solution that they're going to want to pay me money for. That's really important. If you don't have that box checked off, it's really hard to create a great company because you're pushing. You're trying to convince people they need what you have instead of them saying, oh my God, you have that? I want it right now, and I'll pay you even more for it because I need it yesterday. That's what you want. Team DNA, I'll speak a little bit more about team, but that's why you folks are here, and that's why we like to interact with you folks, is to look at the teams, the people who start the companies. And if you don't get that right, then it's great market, great product, the company probably won't succeed. I'll tell you the crazy attributes that are necessary to be a really great founder, and you can all see if you match these. Incredible product focus. You just can't be trying to do 10 things at once. If you are, again, probably a bad idea. If you pick that one thing you're going to do and do extremely well, you have a better shot. I'll get into some of the operating margins and financial-oriented stuff that I knew nothing about, by the way, when I started as venture capitalist, so don't feel bad. If any of you are fairly technical and you don't know much about financials, don't worry. There's only a few key little points you need to know, and it's super simple. If you can do algorithms, you can do the basic addition and subtraction math you need to, and you'll be great. Frugality and inferno with single match, I'll talk about that. I won't go to this slide, but if you wanted a busier slide that sort of gave you more detail, and I'll make sure this presentation gets made available to you. These are some of the deeper definitions of the kinds of things you need to worry about or think about when you're analyzing your own idea in a deep... the market, for example, I'll just delve into that one for a second. It's one thing to say a big market and to say, well, boy, if I sell this, I see a lot of people buy this, I should be good. You got to go a little deeper than that. You have to understand, well, who's in that market already? Are there giant competitors that, let's say, own the customers? So even if my product's so much better, if I can't get to those customers, can't sort of get their attention, this path is blocked, that might be a bad idea. So you have to analyze the market. You have to understand whether are there lots of competitors where no one dominates, or is this one big giant gorilla who dominates? All that will affect how easy or hard it is for you to get your product sold. Again, those are details to follow. So I'm just going to now pick only a few more slides. I'm just going to pick a few key things that I want you to remember, because it's really all you need to remember. If you keep this cheat sheet presentation in mind, I think you'll do great. So on the financials, as I said, I knew nothing. I'm not even sure I knew what gross margin was when I went from engineering to venture capital. But this is the one financial metric you should understand what it means, and then make sure you sort of memorize its implications. Gross margin, which of course is basically what does my product cost to build, and what can I sell it for? You take the difference, and you take that difference, that profit, over the sale price. That's your gross margin percentage. If you sell something for $100 and it costs you, $90 to make the cost, and you have a 10% gross margin. And just to give you a hint, that's not good. That's not bad. What you want is our best companies. The gross margin is always over 60%-ish. You want as high as possible, basically. And a lot of you are in software. If you do software right, it should be really high. It should be, because how much do bids cost? Not much, but there is a little bit of other things you have to worry about to distribute and so on. But the reason why this is the one to focus on is if you think about it, if we look at a business and you guys are starting to sell some product, you're actually getting some customers, and they're paying you something that gives you a good gross margin, that says a whole bunch of things. First of all, it says the customer must really be in pain, because otherwise they wouldn't pay you that much. They'd work you down on price, right? It says that you must really have something different, because if you didn't have something different and there were 5 companies just like you, again, you wouldn't get away with a good gross margin. Margin would be compressed, which is what happens in what they call commodity industries when everybody's selling the same thing. If you look at those companies, look in the financials and look at that one line, it's really tiny gross margin. Finally, it says that you probably won't need as much money. Because if you have a high gross margin, that's the quicker way you're going to actually turn profitable. And one thing that we've learned is that all of our companies that didn't require much money until they got profitable tend to be the bigger successes. So it's very interesting. I mean, you might be deceived and think it's a good thing when you read an article about some company just raised $100 million. That means it's going to be great. Actually, that usually makes us worry. If we look at a company that raised a lot of money, we say, wonder if that's a good business. Probably might not be. Because our most famous companies that I rattled through a few earlier spent remarkably few dollars before they turned profitable. Very oftentimes single-digit $1 million. Oracle, I think, spent $7 million. Cisco Systems spent $2 million. Those kinds of numbers, maybe into the tens if the different kind of chunk company. And by the way, the good news, really important news for many of you, is ultimately when you take your company public or get it bought, you'll get much higher value for your company if you have a high gross margin. In terms of public market investors or acquirers, one of the number one things they look at right away. So you come to them and say, hey, I have this wonderful company, look at all this revenue, and they'll say, okay, what's the gross margin? First thing to last. So keep that one in mind. So that's supposed to be a strand of DNA over there. I think it was my own hokey artwork. But so this is the founder set of comments I wanted to make. Our most successful founders are pretty strange people, and they have kind of strange attributes. You have to be all of these things. You have to be extremely sharp, of course. You have to be scrappy. That means, be able to fight, never give up. Frugal, incredibly frugal. Here's the part where it gets a little psychotic. You have to be obsessively driven. So you have to literally be obsessed with the success of your company. Our best founders, they hardly eat, they hardly sleep. They just are so driven. It's all they think about is making that company successful. And that's true of the really famous ones you know about. So obviously Steve Jobs was like that. Incredibly obsessed. Larry Ellison was with Oracle, incredibly obsessed. And they're fixated on thrilling customers. Our best founders would never accept their product not being something that customers loved. If their customers don't love the product, they won't accept it. They get obsessed with the product. They usually drive their teams pretty hard. We got to make it better. We got to make it better. They want a product because it's them. It feels like it's their creation, founder's creation, that thrills people, makes people say, I love that product. And that, of course, leads to a more successful company. Metric focus, especially if any of you are doing internet companies. The real beauty of an internet company is you can measure things. You can measure lots of data, and you can analyze it. And our best founders for successful internet companies are obsessed with measuring the numbers all the time, improving, $2 million, making it better and better. That second to last one's really important. Our best founders, that might not be quite accurate. Many of our best founders do have quite large egos, but They're not distracted by their ego, meaning they're still focused on making the company successful, not get hung up on the title or how they look or anything like that. It's all about their company. And then the final one that's really important to probably the folks in this room, the folks we back, the people we back, do not have to have wonderful resumes and have worked in all kinds of great companies or even gone to the best schools. We look at all those other attributes higher in the list, and they take precedence over that last one. So our best founders sometimes come from no-name schools, haven't worked anywhere, but if they have all those other attributes, they can be extremely successful. So the point of this slide is only that if you think about it, try to analyze carefully, just use your logic. What is it that a startup really has versus big competitors, big, giant, well-funded competitors, but big companies have really good ideas too, right? Well, we have better engineers. Well, big companies have good engineers too. What you really potentially have is the ability to be incredibly focused, stealthy, and fast and efficient. You don't have to get distracted by bureaucracy. You don't have to get distracted by having huge products to worry about from years past, customer relationships to worry about. You can just focus and win. Just like the little guy is hopefully going to beat that big guy. Squash. But you can't forget that. Because if you think about whether a startup's going to succeed or fail, if I'm sitting on the board of a startup, and I'm listening to the startup, and I see that inside the startup, they're distracted by a lot of things. They're having, internal squabbles and so on. They're fighting over things. They have conflicting products. They're not going to succeed because they just gave away their one and only real advantage as a startup, right? So keep that one in mind. This is a really bad graphic that I tried to do. I'll try to illustrate a point. It's a concept to try to keep in your head, which is you have to think about what is the core of what you're trying to do. Let's say it's a technical idea. And you're going to have a better, faster, core database transaction engine or something. Then you should make sure that everything in the company is aligned, focused on that one core thing that's going to make you different. So, for example, where are you going to hire the best engineers? Where are you going to go out of your way to hire the world-class engineers? Well, it better be core database transaction people, not somebody who does a great GUI necessarily or something. I mean, you shouldn't kill yourself to go get that best GUI person because the core is your database transaction engine. Or where are you going to address what pain are you trying to address? Where are you going to take the most risk? I don't really have that on the slide, but I've been on boards before where the core differentiation of the company, the reason for it to exist, is some technical thing, right, that does in telecommunications or something. And then all of a sudden you hear that the schedule is going to be late. We're going to miss the product window by 3 months because some chip is delayed. It has nothing at all to do with why they should exist. Meaning they decided to do some other chip to do something that made the product, a little nicer on the fringe. That was a bad choice, right? Because every risk you take, if you're going to be late, you should be late on the core thing you're trying to do to define the company. So that was the attempt at that slide. This set of slides just says, don't be distracted or worried too much about whether the market is up or down, or we're in a recession, or a bubble period, whatever. It can always be a great time to start a company. In fact, some of our most famous companies were started in really bad times. And the reason is, if you adhere to all those other things I said, you have a great product, really addresses a pain, and that pain exists whether the people are flush with money or not flush with money, you'll still do well. In fact, you might be stronger. This is more for the folks in the audience, the people in the audience who are thinking about clean tech companies or energy companies, because those do tend to require more money. And there's sort of an observation to keep in mind, which is if your company is going to need a lot of capital before it turns profitable, you know that there's always industry hype waves. Things get really hot, there's kind of bubbles, and investors pile in, and everything, valuations go up and all that, and then there's usually a crash. If you're going to have a really capital-intensive company, one that will require lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, let's say, you better guess right as to where you are in that curve, because if you look back in history, I'll take Amazon as an example. If Amazon was started in year 2000 instead of when it was started, which I think more like 96 or 95, it probably wouldn't exist today as Amazon. It probably would have gone out of business because Amazon required hundreds of millions of dollars before it turned profitable. Now, fortunately, Amazon was started, maybe here. Amazon was started somewhere here, so it had all this hype years to raise more and more money while investors were just piling in, and it was great, right? if Amazon had been started here and the bubble crashed, the company wouldn't exist. So it's just something to keep in mind very carefully. If you're starting a company you think is going to require a lot of money, you better think carefully, where are we in that inevitable, up and down, and just make sure you guess right. You don't want to feel like you're near the peak at that time. This one's also, I guess, relevant to some of the energy-related startups or energy efficiency or smart grid or anything like that, if any of you are involved in that. We just are always cautious about anything that, I call it, depends on the kindness of strangers. And what that means is, think carefully, what am I depending on for this company to success? And if I'm depending on something from the government, let's say, at least in the U.S., some subsidy to make all the math work, I'm really nervous about that because those things change. I'm depending on them just keeping it the way it is, and all of a sudden politicians change and they change their mind and your company's dead. So it's a lot more comfortable when you have things that you're not depending on the kindness of anybody. You're just going to focus on what you do and make sure your customers are going to buy your product. Finally, just if you are going to do a capital-intensive company, I'm not trying to leave you with the message that don't ever do that. If that's your passion and you have a great idea, then it is true statement that, at least in our experience, the capital-intensive companies that win for us still, when compared to their peers, the other companies in the same category, they tend to be way far on the meanest of the category side. They spent less money, they got the product quicker than anybody else, and so on. So even on a relative basis, companies in capital-intensive categories still have to be on the sort of the lean side. So finally, the things you want to think big about, the big things, make sure your market's really, really big. Make sure your gross margins are really, really big. Your operating margins are big. Your value to your customers is really, really big. Your paying your address is really, really big. Those are the big things. The small things, you want to make sure that your headcount, you try not to hire tons and tons of people too fast. You want to keep your burn rate, that's how much money you're spending. You want to keep that as lean as possible. The money you required. You want to keep your focus very tight and very small. Short time to market. If you get all that right, you could be on your way to having a giant famous company. Thanks. That's all I had in the prepared remarks. Happy to take any questions if you guys want to do that. Do we want to do questions? Okay.
Question I have is that essentially
to me that don't pitch to me how you build your products, pitch to me how they build community. What do you say about this? It's all about is this really so crucial in these days? Investors not even interested anymore in products, but more about social, building communities, networks. What do you say about Sequoia? What's the focus?
I mean, it depends. If their comment was on specifically...
No, that was general. That was general.
And again, sort of depends how generally you interpret where the comment came from. If they were to view it very generically, if the comment was really about, focus on making your product or whatever it is you're offering so great that you build, a fan club, essentially. You build not just customers, but you build a club of people that love it a lot. And we have that in many of our companies that are product companies. You get people to just be rabid fans. I mean, Apple is the greatest example of that, right? They create rabid fans of Apple products, and that's essentially a community. So maybe that was the comment. If it was really narrow about social networks, you have to be careful of catching on to any just buzzword or trendy thing and overdoing it.
Well, let me probably elaborate. It was more about if the idea today, if it doesn't have social component, has very little appeal for the investors. Is this true or not?
Not true for us.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Something like that. And we have an inventor who has some brilliant idea. Do you have, or Sequoia, does it have a rule of thumb? How much of a company should such a person possess? After seed round and then after some bigger rounds? If there is
no, I don't know if there's really a rule of thumb. I'll tell you, there's a lot of consistency, I'd say, in all the companies that I've been involved in over the years and have seen us invest in. The sort of rational split in founder shares, guys like Sequoia shares, option pool. So if we were just starting a company today, that's the way we would think about it. You and founders would say, we were investing, we own a certain percentage, you and your co-founders own a certain percentage today. and then let's have another piece, another percentage for unallocated pool. That is, for all the people we want to hire, right? And very often, a starting position would be a third, for example. It's a sort of fairly common way to do it. Sometimes we get a little more, sometimes a little less, sometimes founders a little more, a little less, but it's kind of a rule of thumb for the initial sort of real Series A.
Yeah.
R&D. So there's some additional risks for VC also. And especially now where a lot of big companies are going down with bankruptcies and simply back solar companies, things like that. So are you really ready now to invest in new tech?
It's a good question. I mean, another way of putting the question is, given all the rules I just said we follow, are there any clean tech companies that would actually meet all those rules in terms of capital required and time to market, risk? And the answer for us was yes. But since I was leading the efforts there, the way it felt to me was we were looking for fewer needles in a much bigger haystack. So there was a much broader set of companies we had to look at to find sort of fewer companies, with very few, of certain types that actually fit all that criteria. And fairly big categories that did for us. So it was very hard. We didn't make any biofuels investments because we couldn't figure out how to make it fit a model we were comfortable with in terms of risk and all those things, time to market, money required, all that. So we just didn't invest in biofuels. Other firms did. Other firms had different models. They invested, and I think some succeeded and some haven't. Solar is similar. I think in general, I'm sort of proud looking back at the strategy we used. It was cautious, but we really didn't have any disasters at all. And we have some really promising companies that were more technology companies. I'll give you an example. I'm on board with one called Tula, T-U-L-A Technologies, that really is an algorithmic company. It's really signal processing software applied to engine performance with a little bit of the magic things happening in the engine control. And it gives massive fuel efficiency savings for standard engines in cars. So we're just signing big contracts, or in the process of signing big contracts with big U.S. automakers. And that company took very little capital, frankly. So was that clean tech? I don't know. It's energy efficiency. It's not, generation of energy, but it's energy efficiency. There's other companies that we've looked at. Let's say it's a new gizmo for heat to electricity. It doesn't require you building a plant. It requires product development, just like we're used to, box companies and so on. Company like that. And look the same, similar profile to an IT company, maybe. The ones that require giant plants, energy producing plants, those are the ones that we've had a harder time getting comfortable with.
In getkarma.com.
Get Karma?
Getkarma.com.
I don't bring up, that one doesn't ring a
Which
bell.
was acquired by Facebook a month ago.
It could have been one of our...
It's application. You can make
Could have been, was it a CELO, very small company maybe?
not. I don't remember.
I might be mistaken. You might be right, I might be mistaken.
But Sequoia Capital was among the investors which invested in this service.
Get Karma.
Getkarma.com.
Yeah, I caught that. It might be my mistake.
That's why I'm asking a question if you remember.
Oh, it could have also come from one of our other... We have quite a number of very small investments. And in a case like that, I get the impression from that poster that you just showed me that it got acquired at a fairly early stage. And those happen. And I barely even see them.
That's Mike.
Yes.
What does Sequoia Capital need to know in order to invest into a relatively new business with a great innovative idea, but this business without a lot of funds actually has no possibility to obtain profits and margins from these funds? We need money in order to have a great potential on the market.
I think the question is really, does Sequoia Capital invest in just raw ideas? And we do, very much so in our history. Not all the time. And in fact, in different categories, the bar is set a little differently. So these days, for example, a lot of internet ideas where you're counting on a lot of adoption and a lot of usage,
the cost to get a site up and running, to sort of try your idea, has come down by more than an order of magnitude since the sort of 90s to now. Very often for certain companies like that, where we're not sure, just gut level, we're not sure will people use the site or not, we can't tell. But it depends how well they'll do it and so on. Those kind of companies might be better off taking $200,000 in seed and putting the site together and trying it. And then when we see early data with the CIOs, chief information officers, and vice president of technology, and CTOs of a lot of the really big customers, enterprise customers. And we go and you sit down and you say, what's your pain these days? And what do you think about this kind of company, that kind of company? And if you have enough of those conversations, you maintain a fairly accurate picture of the way things are shifting. And then that leads you to, we need to invest in more virtualization companies or cloud companies, because all these CEOs, CTOs we just talked to all said that's their biggest pain. So that helps. We never try to just blindly, read magazines. It's out. Looks like everybody's doing clean tech. Let's do clean tech or something. We try to keep it focused on where is actual money being made. Yes.
Times that pain of the customer and the profit of the entrepreneur are really in the same basket normally. So from your experience and in different industries and different trends, where do you see the biggest pain of the customer that is still not satisfied to the level the customer wants, and this is kind of fail of transparency for the entrepreneurs to identify this pain? Where do you see still unsatisfied, let's say, possibilities? Thank you.
Oftentimes, when you have a technology change, core technology change, that's sometimes where you get to benefit from a situation like that, where your solution is such a dramatic degree better than what the industry is buying. And one constant pain of enterprises, for example, is they always want to reduce costs, always. So if all of a sudden you let them do something that they have to do, absolutely have to do, they have to buy such and such a system, and you're proposing to be able to do it, let's say more scalably at some fraction of the cost, with all these other benefits, then that's where you could probably get away with nice gross margins. You're addressing pain. Again, considering also, are there other competitors doing exactly what you're doing, and so on? Do you have sort of a unique advantage? If you have a unique advantage, and you're addressing a real pain in a dramatic way, it's usually where you'll have nice gross margins. There's categories of companies that traditionally have pretty nice gross margins. I'm involved in some very raw technology companies, semiconductor companies, and what they call mixed signal. I don't know if any of you are semiconductor people, but most semiconductors are called digital chips, big chips, and they do Wi-Fi or they do whatever. Really tricky stuff like radio frequency, the part that speaks cellular right on the front end. Those are called mixed signal chips, and that's sort of an art. It's not a science. You get these brilliant engineers who know how to do masterpieces, the secret nuances of the way they do the chip, and it just works, and no one else can make it work. Those chips typically get nice gross margins, 70%, 75%. Any other questions? Yes.
Slightly kind of concerned about the regulations or dependence on something kind of on the markets, like government regulations or anything else. Does it mean that kind of Sequoia never consider the kind of any distractions, innovations, or projects that might be currently somehow regulated or even doesn't regulate it at all, and it's theoretically might be the risk of kind of the traction from the government, but in general might kind of blow up the market or somehow destroy or change the how the current market is working. Kind of the simple example is PayPal. I suppose that it's also they were not very satisfied and welcomed by the markets and regulation, but it became kind of the stars. I'm just concerned, kind of the simple, particular question regarding the crowdfunding that in the US right now, the Jobs Act that has been passed, the Senate, that might be kind of the new era of kind of new type of financing.
Yeah. Regulations. You can sort it this way, which is we've been more likely in the past to invest in a company. PayPal is a good example. I'm on the board of a online financial services company these days that's in an environment where there's constant new regulation coming down that is sort of prohibitive regulation, meaning you have to dodge hand grenades that keep getting thrown at you. You have to keep dodging it, so on PayPal is similar. Those kinds of risks we tend to take more often than not. The ones that we're more worried about are if there's some brand new piece of legislation and, like a subsidy, for example, big, giant, fat subsidy that suddenly makes a business model make sense. Those are the ones we're more skeptical about because you don't know how long that's going to last. And we just fear that we'll be sailing along and making wonderful money and all of a sudden the subsidy will go away. The business will fail. So I don't know if you got that distinction. It's more like, if there's no regulation that prohibits you from doing something, but there might be, or there's threat of it, we're more likely to take the risk, depending on the case. If there's something that's a bit unnatural in the system, and that's what the company depends on persisting, then we worry. You want to take more, or are we? Yes.
My name is Vlad. Thanks for a great presentation. And my question is, can you recommend any books on startups, entrepreneurship, VC relations, etc.?
I get a little bit more active in blogging. I don't think we did it quite as much as other firms, but I know I haven't been quite as good about it quite yet. But some of my other partners, Roloff Both is a fabulous partner of mine. He's the guy that he was the CFO of PayPal, youngest CFO of a public company, I think, when they went public. And then as soon as he came onto Sequoia, the first thing he did was YouTube. And now he's on board with a lot of interesting companies. I know he's fairly prolific, in blogging, so he's a follow guys like that. And just use your own sense for investors you feel like have a great track record, and if they're verbal on the internet, you can follow them. I don't know any books out there.
What do you think about how much equity should founders keep after Series A? And I would like to hear your thoughts about that.
It always depends. I mentioned that a fairly standard split would be, a third. If there's a small founding team, maybe they get a third, or 30 or 40% chunk they hold on to, and then the investor. For folks like us, it'll depend on the investor too. This is, in my opinion, again, maybe this is a selfish perspective, but I believe it. I would honestly believe it. One of the temptations that startups have is to get really fixated on Series A, for early rounds, on the valuation of their very early round. And you can, I guarantee, you can always get people to pay a higher valuation than, for example, a Sequoia. I can point you to people that can go and pay back. So the question you have to ask yourself is, was that going to serve you best in the end? Because one phenomenon that happens, for example, with Sequoia companies, I'm grateful for it. It's a little strange, but when we invest in a Series A, and let's say we bought 30%, and the guy down the street would have paid the same dollars and you only bought 20%. We tend to have a pretty good track record of hopefully the company turning into something very large. But B, even in the next financing rounds, the valuation of the next few financing rounds, because we're involved, tends to get pumped way up. So then if you do your math on, okay, what's the total dollars I took in, Series A plus Series B and C, and how much did I give away? You're oftentimes very happy. So there's a company that just went public of mine called Infoblox, worth probably $1 billion or so, and invested ever since the seed level. And I remember at the very early round, when I was the lead investor there, we invested, I think, $5 million for 40% of the company. And it was a very nice little startup he had. He already had some traction and so on. And I told him very explicitly, promise, don't go with us at this valuation because, I know that this is will seem kind of harsh to you, but I knew that there was multiple rounds left in the company, and I wanted to make sure we had what would make us constantly be having that company at a very high priority. So he gave away quite a bit of the company in that first round. Well, I think within the first year, so that was at a 7 pre or something like that. Within the first year, the next round we did was at 90 pre. Not much time had passed between the 7 pre and the 90 pre, and it took in a lot of money, quite a bit of money. So then the entrepreneur was very grateful. He did that math and said, wow, okay, that made sense. I'm happy with where I ended up. So, all the time. Thank you.
The first visit in Ukraine. The second, what do you think about the quality of Ukrainian programs? And do you know or can recommend it a good CTO?
Good question in Ukraine. A lot of our companies have R&D centers in Ukraine. And several of our companies were founded either Ukraine or Russia and moved to the U.S. I'm just waiting for a lot of you to create companies that are founded here and stay here dominate world markets and give opportunities for us. The actual rationale is one of my chip companies did a large financing round with Sequoia Capital as lead investors fairly recently. So it was a bit of a follow-up trip to Russia to interview people for the Russian entity and so on to help the company like we were supposed to do. While I was there, I visited more, of the ecosystem to understand Russia, and then friends here offered me a wonderful opportunity on a Saturday to swing through Ukraine. As soon as I heard I was going to meet with entrepreneurs, I thought it was a great idea.
So you're basically just getting
as a founder to
to us what they have invented and hopefully already built at some degree, and we can together judge what do they have and give them our feedback. So let me first of all start from the best UA, Daniel. Here we go. Essentially, well, I know you guys pretty well. I love
Hello everybody, I'm Daniel, founder of this new project. Michael, did you say that this is your first time in Ukraine?
Yes.
Okay, good. I have a question to you. How would you find, let's say, grocery store here in Kyiv?
Would I find a grocery store
in
Ukraine?
What service would you use?
What service would I use? Probably Yahoo or Google Maps, and then search nearby.
Okay, good. Well, but if you need, let's say, vegetarian food in the grocery, specifically.
Difficult. Probably look for an app. Probably look for an app on my iPhone that, for example, there's one in the U.S. called, I think, Around Me, that uses your location and tries to figure out what's around.
Okay, good. If you are gonna look for taxi service, how would you find what is best taxi to give?
Again, probably start with a Google search. I probably wouldn't be very successful.
Anna, would you use Best UA project for? Okay. So our service will help find places around you. Would it be taxi, restaurant, beauty salon, or just anything? We started 1.5 years ago, initially as a clone of Yelp. So we found a lot of reviews, but after 1 year of operating, we understood that review by itself has no value. Nobody will buy reviews. So next we understood what problem will we solve. How to find grocery store, how to find taxi, how to find any service and place around you. This is our secret formula. A bit of Yelp, a bit of Foursquare, a bit of Bazaar Voice with their review segregation, and our new search approach. It will be best way. There's 2 words about search approach. Don't use Googleized search as everybody do right now. When you're looking for pub, when you want to watch football, you type in pub, TV, football, Kiev, street name, etc. Use Best UA and just type in, I want to watch football, or I want to cut my hair, or this. And we will give you 10 best places around you. Of course, if you put pub, TV, football, we will give you 10 best. This is how we are going to be in 3 weeks. We have a previous version, which was a clone of Yelp, and now we spend a lot of time and forces for making very usable prototype, and we will run it in 3 weeks. So when you type, I want pizza, where? On Maidan Square, or we will recognize your location, and we will give you 3 pages. Pizzerias, pizza delivery, and grocery store, because they also sell pizza. And 10 best places with pizza around you. So with 1 on the top, which is the best. So you need pizza, we will give you 10 places with one best. And with immediate action. Book a table or make a reservation or order a taxi or something. Just for any need. This is just a beautiful picture. Few words about market direction, but Michael should know about this market more than we are. Yelp was founded 8 years ago, and like a first service with reviews, first big service. And in last year, there were a lot of big IPOs, big new projects. So we are on this market of reviews and searching of places. The premium subscription on our website, and second is paid direction. And we have already almost 200 payers in Kiev. This is a structure. Mainly restaurants, and beauty salons, stores, entertainment, etc. Our growth of traffic, this is only Kiev, mainly Kiev. And we didn't spend on marketing. Our team, we have 20 people, and this is our one of business angels. That's me. We have 3 business angels who believe in our project. I invested my own money, so total is $350,000 US were invested in this project. And we are looking for around 8 to go global. This is our strategy. For next few months we are going to expand to Russian cities and to Prague, Sofia and Amsterdam. We have a preliminary discussions with partners in that city. And then maybe after 1 year going to United States and Eastern Europe, Western Europe. That's it.
What is your exit strategy? What is your exit strategy? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? What will be the business?
I'm going to be between Yelp founders and Foursquare founder.
So you're going to go like M&A or IPO? Like, what's the exit of the business?
If you're talking about me, I see being like Mike Zuckerberg with 24% of this project. It will be.
Yeah, I understand. Well, my question was, how do you exit from the business? You go IPO, or you want to sell your company to bigger vendors? You're going to sell clone of Yelp to Yelp? Like, there's no business for it.
This is a business that is not a clone of Yelp already.
Good.
And I will be just between Yelp and Foursquare. And I'm going to be very popular. I don't want to sell to this company at all.
Okay.
IPO would be a very good business.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Good answer. Okay, the next one, it would probably resonate.
I invite with me my English teacher because I studied just 2 months. But let's speak English Ukrainian style. Slava, what did you say?
What's the difference between arbuz and Amazon?
Okay. My name is Vlad. And my company. No, I don't shame. My company has created a web-based portal for entrepreneurs and clients.
Okay.
And we next slide. And we have created online copy of Real Mall. What is Real Mall? Real Mall it's place when people, if man is entrepreneur, he can rent e-shop. Not buy, but rent e-shop. If man is buyer, he can speak, he can buy something. He can conversation with other buyer. He can ask other buyer what do they think about some goods in this mall. And next slide. And 8 months. First 8 months our work. What did we get? A number of visitors double in months. All months double numbers. 11,000 e-shops per 8 months we get. And 4% of all visitors make purchase in our e-shop. We have cash flow, we have profit statistics in that time, and we have professional team, professional developers, professional marketologists, professional sales managers, and administrative resources. Yes. Okay, thank you, Pavel. What is the market situation? We thought so. Many people know and know very well that internet is the future, and many people need to start e-business, start own e-shop, own site, own what they want. And many people have not enough money to start. And we calculated them, if people need to start e-business, they must pay maybe $2,000. We offer our clients do it for 200. It's really economical. Next. Thank you for smiling. I can speak China. What is the market situation now? And сможешь переводить? Слово какая ситуация на рынке для потребителя? Для потребителя ситуация на рынке следующая. Потребитель не доверяет интернет-покупкам. Потребитель не доверяет интернету. Много-много различных ресурсов, которые предлагают свои услуги, и нет реально объективного мнения о том, собственно говоря, какой из них хороший. Есть там несколько лидеров, которые однозначно хорошие в интернет-пространстве. По крайней мере, там, русскоязычной веб-зоны. Что мы решили? Мы решили, что, собственно говоря, необходимо сделать объективное мнение и социализировать его. Мы создали такой портал, в котором потребитель имеет информативный ресурс и видит, что конкретно его друг покупает в это время, в которое он находится на портале. То есть, что конкретно купил его друг в данный момент, какую он купил шляпочку, какую он купил там блузочку. Подружки видят конкретно, что покупают их друзья, их знакомые. И, конечно же, заходя на каждый товар, можно увидеть, покупал ли этот товар мой друг, оставил ли мой друг комментарий об этом товаре, оставил ли комментарий об этом магазине конкретном из 11 тысяч магазинов, которые существуют, и какой из этих магазинов я могу выбрать для того, чтобы совершить покупку. Следующий слайд. Если говорить про предпринимателя, что получает предприниматель, участвуя, открывая и арендуя магазин в нашем проекте? Он, конечно же, получает удобный, созданный нашими архитекторами юзабельный интерфейс интернет-магазина. Он получает экономию на SEO-оптимизации. Да, ведь сейчас большое количество людей, которые рассказывают, что они большие специалисты, и прямо вот через месяц ваш магазин попадет там в топ, и Google будет транслировать только вас в первых строках. Конечно же, мы даем профессиональную поддержку и автоматически индексируем магазин. То есть, если у обычного предпринимателя с уровнем дохода $300, там, который на сегодняшний день существует в большом количестве, у него нет такого уровня образования, чтобы там, понять качество услуги. Мы делаем это автоматически и выводим магазины в топ. Мы даем ему статистику, он видит, кто конкретно смотрит его товар, кто конкретно интересуется этим товаром, кто конкретно из людей, зарегистрированных на портале, что сказал о его товаре. И мы даем бесплатное консультирование от специалистов для наших предпринимателей. Покупатели получают некий профайл из социальной сети, в которой он может размещать свои фотографии и то, что может размещать там на Фейсбуке или где-либо еще. Мотивная стена, на которой он видит не комментарии стандартные для социальных сетей, там красавчик, ты умничка, там разумничка и еще миллионы одинаковых писем. Он видит конкретно, что в данный момент покупают его друзья. Вот. Заходит подружка там, на свою страницу и видит, там другая подружка в данный момент купила украшение. Или эта подружка захотела, чтобы ей подарили другое украшение. Ну, вот такой вот, собственно говоря, микс из интернет-магазина и социальной сети. Магазин получает то, что его легко создать. Он получает любую аналитику, которую только хочет. Он получает домен второго уровня. Он получает возможность дружить. Магазины тоже могут дружить. Магазин может дружить с магазином и объединять таким образом клиентов друг друга. И, конечно же, мы работаем над тем, чтобы потребитель, наш предприниматель, получал функционал настолько хороший, который бы он для своего интернет-магазина мог бы купить только вот за большие деньги. Потому что очень большое количество и аналитики, и той полезной информации. У меня есть iPhone, у Майка есть iPhone, и он его продает. А Виталик, он продает чехлы для iPhone. Виталик с Майком дружит чехол и iPhone. Потребитель смотрит на iPhone и понимает, что где-то существует к нему чехол и покупает это вместе. У потребителей этого уровня недостаточное количество денег для закупки всего склада. Поэтому, объединяя таким образом, социализируя продажи, мы даем возможность экономить, при этом зарабатывать друг другу дополнительные деньги.
Майка не денег, да?
То, за что на сегодняшний день платят, это за аренду интернет-магазина, за аренду субдомена, за дополнительный сервис для магазина, за дополнительный сервис для пользователя. Ну, скажем, for growing the wall. We have experience, 8 months experience in Ukraine. And we are really ready to start in the wall. Thank you.
Вопрос доставки как решается? Как доставляются товары из магазина? Вы берете это на себя? Это часть сервиса, который...
Это часть разрабатываемого сервиса, который существует на сегодняшний день. Это есть проблема. Да, эта проблема существует.
Thank you. Well, we're told that we only have 3 minutes, so our presentation will be a little bit shorter. First of all, I want to ask you, I want to ask the audience, how many of you have a dream in your life? Your goal that you really want to achieve, that motivates you? This many? Just 1, 2, 3? Okay, the truth is that everybody has a dream. Lose weight, write a book, or take a startup to IPO. And Motivate.me is a web application that helps people achieve their goals. we have identified two major problems that prevent personal success. First of all, people often don't know where to start. When committed, there is often no detailed and proven method to reach your goal. Multiply solves it with providing a database of specific steps to the most common goals. Users can get an automated expert advice on what to do based on real-life experience and can choose the path that suits them best. Secondly, the next problem is that people get tired while achieving it because pushing your dream is really difficult. And so we can help with this as well by providing motivation. And Multiply provides motivation by providing tools to organize and track progress towards your dream. You can post your dream on Facebook and get support from friends. You can talk to other people on the system and compete with them, for example, or you can ask them how they have already achieved this dream before. There's also a gamification card, and various badges are awarded for outstanding achievements. So this is problem solution part. And then going forward to the money, we plan to our primary revenue source will be we'll be charging for the service itself with premium model. We plan to monetize on users, on loyal users who actually use the system quite often. So we'll charge for such things as multiple dreams at once, etc. We also plan to attract coaches, famous coaches, that will get access to our audience and the ability to conduct their courses online. So in return, we will get paid commissions for the sales we make together. So, however, they either focus on a specific subject, such as fitness or other goals, or they do not provide guidance through the whole life cycle of achieving the goal, all the way to the end, which is actually the most important value in this particular case. We plan to attract customers from social networks by a mechanism I already talked about, and not spend dollars on marketing activities, at least messy marketing activities. And just a couple of words about the team. There are 6 of us at the moment. All of us are solid professionals with at least 7 years of experience in different areas. There are 2 business analysts, there's front-end, 2 back-end developers. So we can, pretty much develop any system, and so that's what we're actively doing at the moment. We're in the process of building an MVP, a minimum viable version, which will be available next month. So let me just give a couple of screenshots of the product we're building, and these are already, I've seen them already coded and in progress. I think it's awesome interface, and awesome user experience, and this minimum product will already address all the values I've talked about before, and will be enough to start the journey on achieving your dreams. So don't let your dreams slip away. Use multiply.me instead. Thank you.
Send me the link. We'll be the first beta user probably, so this is ready. Why not? Thank you. Thanks. Alexander. Very good.
So I will tell you briefly how I come to this idea. So I've got a little dog. It's Chihuahua. Actually, was present to my girlfriend, and we have moved to our new flat recently, about 3 months ago. And Rocky can't used to this flat, and he's always barking and disturbing neighbors. So I needed to solve this problem somehow. And at the same time, I was playing with Arduino, basically which is a robot based. Here's a robot. It's really small. I will talk about it later. So I decided to create a robot that I can see what Rocky is doing when I'm out of home. And I made a webcam that's standing on 2 servo motors, and you can control this cam via HTTP interface, actually, via your browser. You can point your browser to some sites, rockyproject.com, and see what Rocky is doing. And when I see what Rocky is doing, I was kind of upset because he was sitting in front of the door and just I don't know. I think he was really bored, and I understand that he was need a friend. So at that time, I understand that I need to interact somehow with my dog, with Rocky, and I put over the webcam a laser. Rocky's addicted to the laser, as many dogs or bats, I guess. So I can not only move the camera, but I can move also the laser, and Rocky is like playing with the laser all day, and it was really good. So, solution, please. Next slide. Next one. Yeah. I guess the main question. So you do the robot, it's good. You do the robot, it's good. But why are you here? Why I'm here? Because I want to create real one product that can be in thousands of you actually to play with your pets. Next one. So my idea is to create really nice design of the robot and really grand, I don't know, Apple style, whatever, to fit in almost any interior. This is the goal. And the second one is about the features of the robot. It should be really easy to use. You should just take it out of the box, plug into your computer via USB cable, and that's it. You can control it via HTTP interface. And the interface is the next slide. Thank you. So here's the site. It's kind of beta version. The previous method I called private method, when you can control the robot by connecting to you by the link. So only you or your friends or your family, grandma, grandpa, whatever. And the second one is public mode. Because when I was at work, I don't have enough time to play with Rocky. And I realized that Rocky is playing, the robot is standing, but no one want to play with it. So I wanted to create some kind of artificial intelligence to control the robot, and it will play with the dog. But I think, yeah, this problem could be solved, but it's really hard to solve actually the problem with artificial intelligence. And then I was trying to simplify this task, and I came across the game where actually I'm crowdsourcing artificial intelligence from users. And the second part is about when such robots will be standing at your homes, and then they will be connected to the global network. You can switch between the streams of the video, and you can see what pets are there. If you like it, you can play with it. You see here is the controls. Here is the queue. For example, I like mobs. I want to play with the mobs. He is online right now, and his parents are out at home, so I can play with it. I'm getting in the queue. I've got 60-second play. It's really simple mechanic to play, but I think it could be done even more when you can connect via Facebook or some social network. You can reach some points to playing with your pets. You can share it via Facebook. It's not like it's like a casual games, but I think a bit more, because you are playing not with virtual characters but with real ones. So yeah, that's it. The kitten, I think kitten are also addicted to the laser, and that's cool. So not only dogs, pets, the audience is wider than I think. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Alex. We have some feedback from Mark.
Well, first I want to say I was intrigued by all of them. I'm really impressed. This is my first sample of Ukrainian concept, because frankly, people ask that question in venture capital land, what's the exit and so on. In all our history, we've actually never had any luck with companies that, from the early stages, you're thinking about an exit. We don't actually think that way. I know most do, and that's no criticism of them, it's just for us. We don't think that way. We think about every investment we make, how can this become a giant company that lasts for 20 years? And if we can't figure out how to do that, we usually don't make. If we can't dream about how that could be possible, we usually don't make the investment. Now, do a lot of our companies get bought? Sure. But I have to tell you, you can get bought for a much higher price if you are a company that has the potential and buyers know you have the potential to maybe go all the way. Then they're buying, you're not selling. So anyway, I really like that answer. For that company in particular, I would probably just look to make sure you're unique enough. I don't know all the landscapes. There's a lot of people doing a combination of local and advertising local, reviews local. The combination that you talked about in various different combinations has been tried. So just make sure that exact combination is unique enough. That's probably what I would do now. The next one.
The next one was Arbuz. That's the combination of e-shops.
Arbuz, I really like the early traction, and I like both companies measuring early metrics. That's good stuff. And metrics both look promising. In Arbuz, the only thing I would make sure is that I did hear the unique twist on it, which is sort of renting the space, which I like. I think that's really interesting. There were early iterations of that, that kind of model. I'm trying to think of the name of the company. But the founder of Y Combinator, Paul Graham, his company was one of the early ones I looked at as an associate way in the late 90s. And essentially it was acquired by Yahoo and became Yahoo Shops. And it was one of the early versions of letting shop owners who weren't very internet savvy, get up and running on the internet fairly quickly. So I would just make sure that our booth had enough uniqueness versus sort of the old version of that kind of idea. Next one.
The third one was Modify Me.
Modify Me, that was intriguing. I think the founders did a nice job. That one is a little harder for the intuition to be convincing that, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. Everybody will want to get motivated in this fashion. So that would particularly be one where you probably want to try it first. You get a little bit of angel money and try to see the response you get and measure it. And if the response is very overwhelming, then it would really be promising.
I actually have the same feeling. That's why I've asked for this
one. I have to tell you, the
last one was amazing.
I was really intrigued by it. I think you're hitting a pain point, right? Everybody's with the barking dogs and the board dogs. So that was cool. The robotics angle, robotics are becoming really interesting. We just recently invested in a robotics company in a Series A. So I think that's sort of coming of age. One quick question. I know the dogs that I've had in my life before, I think would probably bark like crazy if they saw a laser thing going around. So I'm just wondering, does it actually solve the barking problem? Maybe that's a dog-specific answer. But anyway, I thought that was kind of true.
Thank you, Mike.
Great ideas. Thanks.
Okay? That's all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you.